Perfect. With that being said, I make a motion that we approve the minutes as written for April 9th, 2026. May I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Member Baldonado. Ms. Varela, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Approved.
Vice Chair Bedonaro,
Approved.
Member Bullionitz,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approve.
Member Reichfeld.
Approved.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Varela.
You're welcome.
The next order of business will be reports from city departments, starting off with APD, Internal Affairs Professional Standards Division from Major Dodi Camacho.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. How is everybody?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, good, thanks.
Good.
So for the month of April 2026, again, I know that you all have this report in front of you and have already reviewed it, but I feel for just the purposes of recording, I'll just kind of go over it. So the total cases opened for the month of April are 26, and the total cases completed for the month of IAPS is 28. We had 9 cases that were opened by the area commands and 6 cases that were completed by them. And I just want to clarify that the cases completed by the area commands are cases that IAPS refers to the area commands, not the ESIs, which are also investigated by the area commands. Currently, we have 91 cases pending, and the average number of days to completion is 70, and that's well below the 90 that we were averaging prior. The ESIs, as I had mentioned, were going to be added to this report, which are currently at 71, and opened year-to-date have been 214. I am also having them add another section for the ESI, and that's just for the completion number of cases. And I'll just mention to you, although it's not on this report, that the completed number of ESIs for the month of April was 41. So just to kind of let you know how those are moving along. The completed cases with the sustained findings is the second page. And just for reference, while there are 16 that are listed here, there can be one sustained allegation, but one officer can have multiple sustained allegations, meaning that they could have several violations that they're facing. So, but you can see that there are 2 area commands on the top for court and personnel code of conduct. When you go down to the top SOPs, by count of investigations with sustained, that's the bottom right-hand corner. Primarily, those are the 2 that we're looking at, is the personnel code of conduct, and court still continues to be up there for SOP violations. So with that, I can take any questions if anybody has any questions.
Thank you,
No?
Major. Any questions? Awesome.
Okay, thank
Thank you,
you.
Major
Have
Camacho.
a good evening.
I appreciate you.
Okay, take care.
Next up will be Internal Affairs Force Division, Commander Scott Norris.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Doing well, sir. How are you?
Good, good. Okay, use of force events for April of 2026. Nothing, when we're starting off, nothing too out of the ordinary, kind of your basic information or your information that really hasn't changed much with our total of uses of force, our highest totals being in the southeast and in the valley, where southeast had 12 and the valley area command had 8. One thing that's kind of important to note is our new policy went live April 18th. So it's kind of a conflation between the old policy and the new policy. So some of these numbers may look different next month when the policy has actually been live for a month. But we have noticed several trends with our new policy, or a specific trend with our new policy that I'll speak about a little bit later in the report. As far as uses of force go, we're up 3 uses of force from March to April by just 31 uses of force in April and 28 in March. So nothing of a drastic change as of yet. As far as the call types where we were that were associated with force events, same thing. Suspicious persons or vehicles seems to always be our top event where we have the most uses of force, whether that's be proactive activity due to proactive activity or something an officer was dispatched to, and that was 13 uses of force. And the next one was actually just 4 uses of force for aggravated assault and battery. The majority of our uses of force are still empty hand control. We had a total of 15 of our uses of force that were just empty hand control, whether it be a takedown or control. And actually, it was a little bit more. I'm sorry. That's going to be, let me see, 15. That's going to be 18 uses of force that were empty hand control, as compared to, say, with less lethal, where we had a 40 millimeter that was deployed 7 times. 2 of those which were misses. We had 1 beanbag and 6 ECW deployments, 2 of those which were misses, and 2 canine apprehensions. Shows of force, they just kind of seem to kind of go up and down throughout the months. This month, or for the month of April, we had 22 shows of force, as opposed to 10 shows of force in March. 10 of those being with a firearm, a pistol, but none with any type of rifle or anything other than that. The second show of force with regard to any weapons shown was going to be a show of force with an ECW, which was 8 shows of force with an ECW. Just draw your attention to low-level control tactics. You'll see we've just kind of recently started tracking these for obvious reasons. Right, we rewrote it in our policy, redefined it in our policy, and we're continuing to audit it. As a reminder, we're auditing our best, just relative to the numbers. The numbers kind of dictate the number of low-level controls, or the percentage of low-level controls that we get in each area command. So the goal is to audit 30% of low-level controls in each area command or division. Sometimes the numbers don't allow us to do that. For instance, if we have, say, 3 low-level control incidents that occurred in the Northwest Area Command, or I'll just make it 4, getting 30% of that. If we only look at 2 of those, right, that's going to be 50% from that area command. Does that make sense? But we're auditing as many as we possibly can, and actually probably auditing more than 30% department-wide on that. So last month it was 256 low-level control, and this month it's 238 low-level control. Since we've started auditing these cases, the 30% per area command, or the closest to, sometimes above, 2 are already being investigated actually as force incidents. So our low-level control audit team looked at it and said, no, that's not low-level control. That's probably going to be a use of force. So they went ahead and forwarded it to us, and we're investigating it to find out what happened, where the breakdown was in terms of policy, understanding of policy or policy interpretation, and making sure that that incident is investigated clearly, or I'm sorry, thoroughly. 8 of those low-level controls have found to be in policy, so we can still have an out-of-policy low-level control if it does not meet the criteria for an officer to use low-level control relative to lawful objective, relative to levels of resistance, things like that. But one thing that's interesting is 15 of those 63 cases were found not to be low-level control at all. So basically what that means is we still have officers that are probably operating or reverting back to the old definition of low-level control from the last policy and not applying the new policy. And we're trying to remedy that through our IAFD quarterly newsletter to remember to, here's the definition of low-level control. This is how you need to classify it, or here's the criteria that you need to meet to classify this as low-level control. So when we're doing these audits, they're looking at those, they're looking at it, and they're going, that doesn't even really rise to the level of a low-level control. But the good thing is we would rather have officers over-report than under-report. It's not, I think, a bad trend. I actually think I would rather err on the side of caution than not do so. Force rate per 1,000 calls per service is about 1.8 in the Southeast Area Command. So around 2 calls for every 1,000 calls for service were involved in a use of force incident in the Southeast Area Command. The next one would actually be the Valley, which is about every 1 call per 1,000 calls. Per 100 custodial arrests, this one's a little bit of an outlier. Out of area, which usually will probably speak to our investigative divisions, sometimes our SWAT team, which I mentioned last last month, where they're sometimes called out of the area to assist, whether that be in the county to help with BCSO or with Rio Rancho. And per those 100 custodial arrests, there were 6.7 use of force events per 100 custodial arrests. Behavioral health involved. It's a little bit lower this month than it has been in the past. Right now, we could confirm that there was a behavioral health incident where we had to use force, and that was in 19% of our uses of force where there was some sort of behavioral health component. Same goes with alcohol or alcohol and unknown drugs. It was a little low in the month of April, 9% that we can confirm somebody was under the influence of alcohol when we used force on them, and 6% of the uses of force were under the influence of either alcohol and or some sort of narcotic or drug. Our level 1 unit, which that will soon be named the low-level control audit unit, they had 3 completed investigations of actual uses of force back when the old policy, because we're still getting those kind of trickling in. Average days to completion was 13. Minimum was 11 days to completion, and maximum was 16. As far as level 2 and level 3, the old policy, we had 38 completed investigations last month. Took us around 70 days to complete those investigations, with the maximum day being 96, which an extension was written for and approved by the superintendent. And we had 1 use of force in the Northwest Area Command that was out of policy. And that's all that I have to report for the month of April, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Do you have anything, Board? Any questions?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
Commander Norris, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So I want to just go to page 5 just because I know I assumed you knew I was going to ask these questions about the show of forces. We started doing the new tracking metrics October 2025, right?
Shows of force, October 2025, yes. I believe it was October 19th.
Yeah, something like that.
2025 is when we
Okay.
stopped counting those as uses of force.
Okay, yeah, because I just was looking at the grand totals, right? Because looking back, because we never did it beforehand, so I'm just trying to figure out the date to start looking kind of forward for trending analysis. And so I just saw the 25th, so no, October, I would say, is out. So we were really kind of starting
Right.
on the 25th of November 2025. And I'm just saying, high spike and then low, and now we're starting to kind of creep back up from 10 to 22, mostly in firearm shows. So is that something you guys are still kind of tracking to make sure that's within the median shows you guys are expecting, or you're still collecting
We're not
data?
necessarily tracking that. What our data analytics team is tracking that. So we actually, when we started doing low-level control audits, when that decision was made, our data analytics, our performance metric unit, was responsible for auditing the low-level controls. We took that off of their hands. We assumed that responsibility because the definition was changing, but we gave them the responsibility of auditing shows of force. So they audit the shows of force to determine whether or not they are in or out of policy, or the circumstances surrounding that show of force. And I can tell you that every misconduct that's related to any type of force or semblance of force comes through me. I have not yet seen an investigation where we've had an out of policy show of force.
Okay, perfect. And then is there a metric or something that for you or the data analyst will ping you or notify you if they get out of a certain range for numbers?
No, we don't necessarily have
Oh.
a range where, hey, if it exceeds this number, that's a red flag for us, and we need to start looking into that. Something like that wasn't necessarily established. We do have processes and systems in place where, for instance, low-level control, I'll just speak to low-level control, where if we identify an officer who has an inordinate amount of low-level control incidents relative to the majority of officers on the scene, or the majority of officers that we see, we do look at that to see if this is a specific issue with a specific officer, and see if there's a performance issue, if there's a training issue, things like that.
Awesome. Thank you, Commander. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, Commander. Next up will be ACS, Deputy Director Jeffrey Bustamante.
Good afternoon, everybody. Really excited to be here. We have not finished packaging up our April report, but as soon as we are, I'll get it over to Director McDermott so she can share. But I want to run through a few quick things and then also share some really numbers that I think would be of interest that are year-to-date numbers, so not fiscal year, but calendar year-to-date, that I think just really highlight some of the hard work that we've done so far this year. But updates since the last time I was here. A lot of exciting stuff. Seasons of Nonviolence is back going. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a success. We had over 500 individuals attend that. Of that, there were 200 surveys representing the 500 folks, so about 2.5 to each party. And of those, about a quarter of them asked for follow-ups. So when we do that, we get our teams in touch for case management, and the ask could be anything for a therapeutic referral to some pretty intense case management, to housing instability and the rest. So those numbers are usually what we like to see. It does evolve per event. Events like the drive-ins at Balloon Fiesta Park, we see that number be lower in the ask for follow-up, primarily just because, you get a little bit different demographic than maybe our Wilson Pool Party and stuff like that. But it was a number that we definitely wanted to see, and we saw some good cases out of that. Our next event is next Saturday. We'll do, Summer of Nonviolence is still a thing. Summer really hits the biggest stride of events that we have. We might have one a month outside of summer, and during the summer, we might have 3 to 5 any given month. So we'll do the kickoff next Saturday. We'll be sending some information on that here soon. And then following soon up, we're going to have a couple drive-in movies. We're looking at doing some social media promotion, including asking people what they would like to see as their first drive-in movie. A basketball camp in June, and then a volleyball camp as well. The basketball may move to July. We'll also have the pool party again in July when we're kind of at our hottest, though today it definitely is starting to feel there. And we're really excited about that. The volleyball camp, want to give credit where credit's due. Albuquerque High has been an incredible partner in this, hosting, teaching kids and the rest, and we're excited to get back over there. Outside of that, our Violence Intervention Division has had some really, a lot of successes. We are graduating 12 seniors this year. For those that remember kind of my stretcher reports, our first year we graduated 1. We only had 1 senior and we graduated her. Last year we had 6. We graduated all 6. This year we had 12 and we're graduating all 12. So they'll be going through their high school graduations here pretty soon. And then we're gonna have one for ourselves, and I'll make sure we send over the invite here in early June. That's a school-based graduation as well, just to help celebrate these kids. They do the work. We try and pour a lot into walking with them, but at the end of the day, the accountability to their lives rests with them, and we're really excited to see our seniors, take and run with it. And, really happy to report all of our graduating class last year is still, in school and doing real well. So always really excited about that. We also will be in front of council here soon, unless we can piggyback onto the omnibus bill just in time, for grants. We were just awarded, and we got notification last year that we received a $2 million grant from the Department of Health for violence intervention work, so really excited about that as well. Moving on to our field division and a lot of their work. Just real quick on the administrative side, we did have an academy start again since the last time we met. I think we have 12 or 13 in that. I actually just met with 6 of them this afternoon just to pulse check. We evaluate them weekly. We see how they're doing, making sure that they're coming along well. We have some real strong folks in there, and so really always happy to see that. So that again should wrap up this summer, and we'll be having another graduation before you know it for them. Moving on to field, we have now eclipsed 150,000 calls since our start. We're excited to see 200,000, which will likely be at some point next year. Maintaining that call volume really we're pushing about 4,000 any given month, and then in the heavier summer months, we are seeing that get over 4,000 pretty consistently. Some key numbers that I just wanted to make sure to bring today to us is we are doing more proactives than ever, and so far calendar year to date, we have done 1,235 of those. These are individuals who we see might need our services, whether it's a transport or just some sort of support, and our teams are able to respond to it. As I've mentioned in the past, we last year established a priority 1 call. Just as a reminder, APD's priority 1s are different from ours. Ours are suicidal ideation, or when an APD officer asks for us to respond, they arrive on scene and they say, you know what, this is an ACS call, and they ask we treat that as a priority one because it's a really good opportunity for them to leave with a positive impression, both of police and ourselves. And so we get to those. So far this year, we've done 830 of those, which we're really excited to announce. Our top referral places, of course, are the Gateway Network, Caseman, and UNMH. Those are the top. Two of the gateways are the top four, and then Caseman and UNMH are the next two. And just a couple other really interesting stats that we're starting to pull out now that we're multiple months in. Our overall transports are up 67%. This tells us that, as I've mentioned in the past, we look at our process metrics. We also look at our outcomes metrics to make sure that we're achieving the outcomes we want to. And one of the key ones is getting people connected to services. So when we're doing more transports, that is a component of telling us that we are able to build a rapport and get people into the services that we need to. Outside of that, of course, 911 and 311 calls are both up for us. Our street outreach team are responding to those 311 calls typically within a day. And a lot of those are, hey, an individual drops by my business every single day at 3 p.m., asks for water and the rest. It looks like they need help. We'll work to get our teams over there and help that individual and hopefully get them into housing. So we did just have, I guess, final two kind of announcements. We had an RFP close for those. As I've mentioned, council generously supported some opioid settlement funds into our street outreach program. A lot of those was a higher up, expanding our relationship with UNMH. That's already done. Getting more services in, that's already done. But we had to do an RFP, which is not a quick process. That actually is just closed and scored, and we are, I think, opening for protest any moment now. So that'll be another thing coming to council here soon, which we're really excited about. And then the final piece, of course, is working through budget. 'Tis the season. I'm sure Thursday, hopefully we'll get out of here, maybe 6, 7 p.m. Probably planning on midnight, though. Fingers crossed. But happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Board members, do you have any questions?
No questions.
No questions, sir? I
Thank you
appreciate
so
your time.
much.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item will be from the City Attorney's Office, Ms. Lauren Keefe, I believe.
Hello, everyone. Ms. Roseborough couldn't be here tonight. She had a scheduling conflict. So she did ask me to touch on a few things. One you may have seen in the news is that we did settle the Jesus Crosby case. And it's probably a case you're familiar with and have followed. We've been litigating that for several years now, and we think we reached a successful resolution that reflects the severity of the case and helps us avoid a trial and prevent the risk there. I don't know if you all have any questions about that in particular, or
Any questions?
okay, great.
No questions.
She also asked that I touch on the lawsuit that was filed last week, which doesn't necessarily directly impact APD, although it could. But so the lawsuit that was filed by the United States Department of Justice is related to a recent ordinance that the City Council passed regarding immigration enforcement. And the ordinance does two things. One is it prevents the use of city facilities, in particular city parking lots, for immigration enforcement. What was happening in Minneapolis is that ICE was staging in parking lots, in like library parking lots, other city parking lots, and what was happening there is that effectively the libraries were being shut down, other facilities were being shut down because ICE would take up the parking lot, people couldn't get in and out. So Minneapolis and other cities have now passed this same kind of language saying you can't use our parking lots for that purpose. So the ordinance covers that. It also directs that businesses need to identify public areas versus non-public areas within their buildings, which is something the city does now. If you ever walk around, sometimes you'll see a sign in a city building that says restricted area, city employees only, and we put those signs up to delineate where ICE needs a warrant and where it doesn't. So if ICE were to go out in this main hallway, it wouldn't need a warrant. That's a public area. Anyone can be in that area. ICE can be in that area. But there are city offices, there are other city areas where no one else is allowed to enter. You need a badge to get into my office. And so our position is that ICE would need a warrant to get into those areas. So the city has done that in its own buildings, and now we've asked that certain types of buildings within the city also do that so that their employees know and understand and their guests know and understand what areas are public and what areas are not. So the Department of Justice has challenged both of these provisions. They've also sued the state of New Mexico, and there's the primary focus, I would say, is on the state of New Mexico. And and that the federal government is looking to build a detention facility in Otero County, and that a large percentage of this lawsuit is going to be focused on the Otero County facility, but we are being sued over those two provisions. And those would relate to APD. There was a lot of discussion in Minneapolis about what the Minneapolis Police Department should do when ICE is on its streets and in conflict with its people, and so APD could be involved, but it's not necessarily clear that they will. So, any questions about that one?
No questions.
So the third item is that the legal department has asked city council for funding so that legal can assist with the prosecution of misdemeanors in the city and with the resolution of misdemeanor cases, working in conjunction with the public defender's office to reach plea agreements that would divert people out of the criminal justice system and get them into treatment or into case management or other types of ways to avoid going through the process and ending up at MDC. So that there's kind of a two-pronged approach to this. One is that diversion. It is partly diversion. Most of the diversion will be handled by the public defender's office, and city legal will be working with them to reach these resolutions, but also assisting APD with the prosecutions themselves. In Metro Court, misdemeanors are prosecuted by police officers. Now, I can tell you for the police officers who are still, they've gone. They don't really enjoy doing that. And it's a drain on APD's resources. It's a challenge for the officers. So we're going to have at least one full-time attorney who will train the officers, who will handle some of the prosecutions. And what Metro Court is going to start doing on Fridays is have scheduling arraignments. And the city legal will handle those instead of the police officers, with the hopes so that we can work out these deals with the public defender's office on these Fridays. What we realized is there was really some confusion around scheduling. People didn't know when they were supposed to go to court. Now people will be told they can come to court on Friday, and they can have their case heard and either scheduled for trial or we'll work out a deal then. And the legal department instead of APD will handle those going forward. So there's any other questions for me? All right.
No questions? I appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you. Next agenda item will be City Council from Chris Sullivan, Council Services.
Good evening, Board. Chris Sullivan, Council Services. Two things to update. OC 26-8 was heard at the May 4th Council meeting, and that was the policy and procedures for your board annual review. Went through, no questions asked and everything, so that's a great move there. Congratulations. Also, OC 26-23 was also heard. It was amended, and I'll let the director talk more about that should she choose to in her report. It was amended, and then it was postponed for another vote on the 18th while the parties discuss what's going on. So that's my report for now. It's great to see a full board here tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? No? Cool. Thank you, sir. Next agenda item will be from City Council, Community Policing Council, Martisa Billy.
Good evening, Chair and members of the board. I'm Martisa Billy. I'm the Community Policing Council Office Assistant. So for my report, we did narrow our 8 recommendations down to 3 for submission at this time. Those recommendations would be 26-2 for public education to Albuquerque residents regarding the law enforcement process, 26-4 for new recruiting options, and 26-9 to improve the APD public reporting process, which is to improve the website. We have not had enough votes from CPC to pass or reject these recommendations. So we're hoping to have that in the next council meeting. We did have our council chairs with the Emergency Communications Director, Jessica Solis, and APD Commander Anthony Montano and Sergeant Matt Tinney regarding the legality and effects of our 5 recommendations, which involve emergency communications, and for a variety of reasons, we have decided that a dialogue might be better, a solution to perceived problems with those recommendations. We're hoping these recommendations get passed if we get any submitted by the end of the month. We don't have any new members currently. We did have one application that was submitted. Our CPC brochures have been updated, so we'll be distributing those and be placing a swag item order soon. We tabled the volunteer coordinators meeting in April at the Civic Plaza, which we were able to speak to residents of all backgrounds. We attended the North Valley CPA focus group for housing, security, and public safety, and we introduced the CPC to multiple employees of the city and county. We attended the Metro Public Safety Day at the County Sheriff's Police Academy. We had our 6 meetings this month, which we featured ACS Jeffrey Bustamante, and 4 of which were attended by the MDC staff. We are still trying this month to get in line with presentations for the 2026 Albuquerque Crime Plan, and we're trying to get as many lawmakers as possible who would like to attend and give their opinion. The university in Southeast CPCs were combined, so the meeting for this month for May has been canceled due to recent low attendance, and in its place we're looking to attend a few public events in the area and hand out information. I came up with an idea for a town hall regarding one of the recommendations for who is responsible for what in law enforcement process, which is the common citizen has the mindset that APD does everything from A to Z. So what we want to do is educate the public that there's a process from APD, the jail, and the courts. So that's one of the topics we were discussing at the council of chairs, and I stand for questions.
Thank you, Martisa. Any questions from the board members? No questions? I appreciate it. Thank you. Next on the agenda will be the CPOA from Executive Director Diana McDermott.
Thank you, Chair. So this was a busy month this last month. We had 102 complaint intakes from April 1st of 26 to April 30th of 26. 21 were assigned for investigation between CPOA and the ones appropriately already with IA or sent to IA. 34 were driving complaints that were resolved with the supervisor. 30 were miscellaneous, where either insufficient information was provided or it was determined that APD were not, personnel were not involved, or the complaint was resolved. And 17 were submitted for mediation. That's both formal and informal type mediation. We had 3 commendations. We do want to welcome Member Duncan, this is her first official board meeting, so we look forward to working with her. We have submitted the job offers to HR for all our remaining vacancies for the CPOA. So the anticipated start date for these individuals should be probably the beginning of June. This is the first time since 2018, and this is including the additional growth that we've had for the agency, that we will be fully staffed with 22 people. So big accomplishment there. Some sad news in the sense that the Mental Health Response Advisory Committee, MRAC, decided at the conclusion of April to disband. The concerns articulated that the absence of the ordinance and the consent decree, they didn't possess the sufficient support and backing to maintain their current activities. So the committee resolved that their resources might be better, more effectively used somewhere else. And so we attended the meetings regularly. We invited any members who still wish to be involved in the participation to the CPOB and process through that way, the policy process. Unfortunately, their insight will be missed. So we do want to thank them as community members that were doing the hard work for that. The board did participate in the training session regarding the forensics unit with a particular emphasis on the responsibilities of the use of force investigations. The board had the subsequent requested training pertaining to police service aid training. So if you would, please email me any specific questions or topics that you would like so that I can go ahead and get those to the academy staff for their review to make sure it's included. The CPOA investigative staff went through the new use of force policy training on April 23rd. We are working on getting the board's training coordinated so that you will be able to go through that. It's preferred, if the board would like, for it to be an in-person training, if we can arrange that. But if nothing else, we'll have a recording. I'm getting some ascension that, in-person would be preferred, so we'll work on that. The delegation from North America is actually coming to meet the CPOA and APD on May 21st. And this event is organized by Global Ties Albuquerque, so ABQ. So the goal of the session is to focus on independent civilian oversight. It's an examination of processes, policy review authority, and accountability mechanisms, insight into complaint investigations, and how these structures promote transparency and public trust with law enforcement. So we're going to be hosting them at the CPOA conference room, and pending on the board's discussion a little bit later tonight, the chair should be in attendance to speak about the CPOA-B. The ordinance amendment was briefly mentioned to clarify the CPOA's investigative responsibilities concerning non-sworn personnel is scheduled for resolution by May 18th, as you heard. We have collaborated with the APD to develop a mutually acceptable compromise. The APOA initially expressed some issues and concerns, but a constructive meeting was held on May 11th, and it appears to have addressed these issues. So the council, like I said, should be taking that up, hopefully without any further delays or objections. During our consultations with the councilors concerning this proposed amendment ordinance, a brief discussion was held regarding the subsequent steps necessary for the other amendments that need to come for the ordinance. So in July and June, it's recommended that that ad hoc committee meet, because the councilors would like to have an actual meeting to discuss prior to going before council as a full, like doing a similar meeting like we did for this ordinance amendment. So having some kind of a product by around August when they come back from break is what they would desire. So again, if the ad hoc can coordinate with the office to set up those particular dates so that we can have the meeting to discuss those things. And finally, as you already heard, the Committee of the Whole Council budget meeting was held on April 30th. It's anticipated that May 14th will probably be the concluding meeting for the budget. The CPOA did not make any additional budget requests for the upcoming fiscal year 27. However, we have requested that the preservation of funding for the 3 non-reoccurring line items of CPC advertising, language services, and mediation be retained. The proposed budget for the CPOA is established at $3,124,000. This budget encompasses the personnel costs, the lease, and the janitorial for our building, and then additional operating expenses. And I stand for any questions.
Perfect, thank you. Questions, board members? No questions, appreciate your time, thank you.
So, should we just wait till the end to talk about when we?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Other
That's what I assumed. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Don't you throw my agenda off cue, I will fight you. Perfect, so thank you. So next order of business will be public comment. There is no online written comment and there is no in-person comments, correct, Ms. Padilla?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Padilla. With that being said, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which will be serious use of forces. There are no use of forces being reviewed for this board meeting due to the planning of 3 appeals that we had scheduled. We'll deal with that later on. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next order of business, which will be officer-involved shooting cases. Likewise with this one, since we were planning to have 3 appeals, we will be postponing those for this board meeting and we'll continue them for the next meeting. Next order of business will be appeals. So give me one quick second to pull that up. Perfect. So now we're entering the appeals portion of the agenda. The first appeal we are going to hear is CPC 247-25, brought by Marvin Vigil. Mr. Vigil, are you present? You can stand by for now. You can sit down for now. Give us a second. We have a little bit of verbiage we have to go through first, and then we'll have you come up, okay? So give me a second. So with that being said, and then APD, of course, the representative is here as well. I can see him in the back. And then council. Now is your go to give the rules. Mr. Vigil, our council here is going to give off the rules and just a process that we're going to go through. So just pay attention to that a little bit, and then we'll continue the process. Sir, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're now at the appeals portion of the agenda, and the following process will be followed in each appeal. During the appeal hearing, each interested party has an opportunity to be heard and present arguments stating their position. No new evidence will be permitted to be introduced during the appeal hearing. The hearing today is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the decisions will be made by the members of this board. The scope of this appeal will be limited to the complaint and the findings of the investigation that followed. If parties during their presentation go outside of this scope, they may be directed by the chair that only arguments that will be considered are those relating to the complaint and the subsequent investigation. We are recording this meeting tonight so that a complete, clear record can be created of everything being said. However, please remember that we cannot create an accurate record with people talking over one another. If people start to talk over each other, interrupt, the chair may call for order so that there can be a clear record of the hearing. The time limits for the hearing are as follows. 15 minutes for the complainant who requested the appeal or their representative. They may call witnesses, but this will count against their time. 10 minutes for the CPOA director or their designee. 5 minutes for the police officer if he or she is present. 10 minutes for APD, and then finally 5 minutes for the complainant or representative to provide a short rebuttal to anything that has been presented by the other parties. The burden of proof is upon the complainant bringing the appeal to demonstrate either 1, a policy was misapplied in the evaluation of the complaint, or 2, that the findings and recommendations of the director were arbitrary, capricious, or constituted an abuse of discretion, or 3, that the findings and recommendations of the director were not consistent with the record evidence. These are the only bases upon which the board may modify or change the findings or recommendations of the director. At the end of each party's presentation, the board will be given the opportunity to ask questions. These questions do not count against the party's presentation time. The questions should be focused on clarifying the record or the argument given and should not offer or invite new information or evidence from a board member through asking the question. Parties should remain respectful and professional during their presentations. Any disruption of another party's presentation shall not be tolerated. At the close of the hearing, the board will deliberate. The board may make a determination in open session or decide to deliberate in closed session as allowed by the New Mexico Open Meetings Act. All final decisions by the board will be made in public. Once a decision is made, a final written notice of decision will be provided to all interested parties as provided for in the CPOA ordinance.
Thank you, Council. Appreciate that. Awesome. Mr. Vigil, you can come up to that podium now. Ms. Barela, and do we have the timer up, the bell, and then the timer, Virginia? Give us 1 second. Give us 1 second, okay? Good. Okay. So, Mr. Vigil, you'll have 15 minutes initially. Okay. There'll be a timer going on. You'll hear a bell as well once your time's up. Just some house rules real quick. When talking about officers, don't mention their names. Just mention officer and just officers or officer. So don't use their names. And then before you start, please state your name. Just for my.
Hello, my name is Martin Vigil.
Awesome.
Again, a car accident on 9/29/25, 2025. I seen the video today, and when I first wrote the complaint, I didn't realize I spoke to the officer T. I didn't know she was there, the female officer. But I did make my initial complaint to what happened in the accident to Officer Yorosa, the Officer U. And so I figured he was gonna write the police report. And when I got the police report, I got so frustrated because like, why Officer T write the police report? And I read the police report. It's like they didn't even do it correctly. He states right here at I was waiting for the passenger light. I was going by and it says, I collided with the driver. I didn't collide with him. He collided with me. I was turning northbound into Charleston Street. When I was driving up the Pennsylvania Street, it was red. Just when I was going a little bit further, the light turned green for them to go westbound. And he was doing that. He kept coming. And he was with other vehicles, but he just went so fast. He just took off. And all the vehicles were barely past the light, barely past Pennsylvania. And the guy, and I didn't see him at the last moment. I'm like, what's this guy doing? So I tried to give the van more gas. He hit me. And I looked it up online. He left, on the video, it took him 9.7 seconds to leave the light on Pennsylvania, and he struck the van. And when I did the math, it comes out, that later, the rate of speed, he got up to 160 miles per hour to 220 miles per hour to hit the van. If he would have went slow and didn't bother going that fast, like, went the speed limit at 30 miles per hour, this would have never occurred. But the police officers didn't even do a proper investigation on that. I found a witness over there who works at Southern Central Car Lot, and I asked him, because I got mad when I read the police report, so I went looking all over to the business out there, I asked him to see the video, and I found one guy over there say, he saw everything. He goes, the motorcycle went too fast, and he hit me. And I do apologize to the officers there here, but I wasn't shocked when I got the accident. There's a lot of it I don't remember, and I was surprised to see that the female officer there, like, I don't remember you talking to her, until I remember what she told when I talked to her when she gave me and my dogs a ride home to drop off my dogs so I could go to the hospital. So I want to apologize for that. I was wrong in that part. And Officer Rosa was respectable. I give him that much. He was in it, but I just feel he didn't do his job correctly by not writing the police report. First of all, when I was the one that spoke to him, he's the one I spoke to. He didn't write the police report out. Officer Torosa did. So I'm like, why did she write the police report? And the sergeant who signed up on it, he was even at the scene. So how did that sergeant sign off the police report when he was even there? And when I spoke to the 2-4 cops, the officer at 2-4 cops told me, she goes, hold on, let me check. She goes, that guy, the sign officer wasn't there. Why did he even sign up on that? And it says on the police report, it goes, officer at the scene, supervisor at the scene, says right here, it says right there. I said, well, this makes no sense. And even the lady at that 2-4 cops goes, yeah, I don't understand why they're doing that. So I was asking if the officer could rewrite this police report, stating how fast the guy was going. They got excessive speed, but that's all they got. He touted to me, if you would have went the speed limit, this would have never happened. I had plenty of time to make my left-hand turn to go to Charleston Street, but he just zoomed on so fast. And he's talking over 160 miles per hour. It took 9 point. I did. I'm just frustrated. It's just so. I got a bad neck now. It took 9.79 seconds from Pennsylvania to Charleston Street, 2 blocks away, and he hit me. They didn't even state that down in the police report. None of that. They didn't do a proper investigation. They didn't bother doing the length of it. Nothing. I don't understand how they can get away. How that happens. How are we supposed to make a left-hand turn if the vehicle's like way over there? How are we supposed to make it? How are we supposed to get to where we're going if we can't make a left-hand turn? It doesn't make no sense. It's like, do I have to make a left-hand turn when the light? I'm a safe driver. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't do none of that. So I just don't understand how this guy just took off so fast. And you look at the video. You look at the video of how fast he took off, and then he collided with the van. In the point of the impact, he says that the police report is saying that the motorcycle struck me on the side, in the middle. He didn't. He struck me from the back. He basically kind of rear-ended me, spun the van around, and he went flying. And I paid for him. I was scared for him, And I'm sorry this happened, but I'm a safe driver, and I just feel the officers didn't do a good job at really investigating this accident. They didn't do it. And now I got bad neck, van's totaled. I got PTSD from that. I see a motorcycle and they're going all crazy out there. The speed limit on Central Avenue is 35 miles per hour. There's no way in the road a motorcycle going 30 miles, going to speed limit is not going to turn that van around like that. You look at where the other cars at, when you left the date, just hit me. Cops didn't do that. They didn't do that. They investigated correctly. And I'm hoping to rewrite this police report. I can't even get a lawyer now. I can't even get a lawyer because of the police report. It should be, in a sense, 50-50. My driver's license. Because no, but you still got to get in my police car. You got to get in my police vehicle. He didn't read my Miranda rights. He didn't pat me down. Nothing. He said, I have to get in a police car. So I'm like, oh, okay, So I got in there. Then I had a hard time with the police, with the ambulance drivers, because I like Trump, you know, who's the president? Because they thought I was kind of, like, because I got an accident. They're like, who's the president? I go, Trump. I voted for him. Oh, you're a bad president. And besides, you're guilty because you didn't get it right away. I saw the.
Have the CPOA do their brief, and then we'll have APD do theirs, and then we'll have you come back up after, okay? Thank you, sir. So next will be for 10 minutes.
Assigned primary of this report. So the Officer T was the proper officer to write this and approve the report based again on everything that was documented. And approve the report based again on everything that was documented. So it is very normal. Again, the crash report not matching the.
And so the initial allegation, which I believe Mr. Vigil has agreed isn't an issue, was that there was bias against him. So I reviewed the case. When I do a case review, I essentially touch every piece of evidence that's in the investigative case. So what Ms. McDermott's team compiles, they send me, whether it's body camera videos, APD reports, their narrative, interviews that they've done. I'll take a look at all that, make sure that they have come up with a decision that I agree with. And then I will either concur or non-concur with their findings. So in this case, I concurred with their finding. Obviously, there was no bias. As Mr. Vigil agreed, the police were respectful to him, and that's reflected in the body camera videos. He was detained temporarily. There was concern that the motorcycle driver may die, and then that would be a different issue. It would require the crash investigations team to come out, which is run from the motors unit. They do a much more thorough investigation than an officer on scene can do. One of the other allegations was related to the accuracy of the crash report. As Ms. McDermott explained, the officers on scene are basically compiling what they see on scene. So it's witness statements, it's any videos that might be available, it's the general appearance of the scene, and that's documented with their OBRDs as well as their documentation. As pointed out by Ms. McDermott, it's not necessarily going to be verbatim. There are verbatim statements that can be attained through the OBRD, and that's all public record. But I concurred that Officer T's report captured the substance of the crash. Again, if there had been a death, an unfortunate death, then the crash investigations team would have came out, and they have some other tools that patrol officers don't have at the time. There were 2 sustained findings. Unfortunately, Officer T did not activate her body camera as soon as she should, and so that was a sustained finding. And then, unfortunately, our policy is very strict regarding pat downs, and so Mr. Vigil was transported with his dogs as a courtesy to him, but because Officer T didn't conduct a pat down of him, that was highlighted as a policy violation, and she was sustained for that. So again, I concurred with the overview that the CPOA did. Again, as Ms. McDermott explained, they're not reinvestigating the crash, they're just determining if there was a policy violation. And the policy violations related to the crash directly were exonerated or unfounded. So does the board have any questions for me, or any questions I can answer?
I do have one question, and it is regards to the one sustained for the mandatory recording, and this is just a question.
Yes, sir.
Could there have been any sort of information relayed in those first initial 2 minutes that the officer could have forgotten to relay to the primary?
I don't think, I looked back at that and I don't think so.
Yeah.
It was, if I recall, it was part of the initial transport from the scene to the apartment, and she then turned on her body camera part way. So she captured the majority of the transport. And then I don't recall if there was a second incident or not. Yeah, but what I have written here is she transported him and didn't record that whole instance when he was in contact with her. As you know from seeing these cases, it's basically if you're in contact with member of the public in that capacity, it has to be recorded. So,
Right, yeah, I just was curious, like, walking up to it with no video, it's hard to look back to, well, what was in that two minutes of
Yeah.
what was visual cannot be given to the primary officer, right?
So this occurred after he had been transferred to her car,
Okay.
and they were on the road. So it
Okay.
wasn't related, it wasn't conversation related
Got it. Okay.
to the crash itself. And typically, as Diane explained, Officer Yu was on scene as the acting sergeant, and he passed the buck to Officer T to complete the report. And as we see typically, I talked to the driver, this is what the driver said, here's his ID, that typically happens.
Cool. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, board members? Thank you.
No, sir. Thank you. Awesome. So, Mr. Beal. So we do allow 5 more minutes for you to do a final statement before we go into deliberation. Would you like to use that 5 minutes?
When the officer said that the sergeant scene was not there, I have the officer's badge number at the 242 cop said that he wasn't there, and her badge number is 8584, and she's the one who told me that the officer wasn't at the scene, the supervising officer. And then when I looked at the video, I counted the seconds. I had to bring that up again, but if the officer would have looked at the video like I looked at the video, he should have counted seconds when that motorcycle took off so fast. And even Officer T, she said in the video, like, don't you think he was going too fast? The motorcycle. And they do got excessive speed, but it should be more than that on his police report, because they're not telling the whole story how fast he went. You're talking over 150 miles per hour on a 35-mile city speed limit street. He shouldn't be going that fast. He's young, he's a kid. He wants to see how fast his motorcycle can go. He shouldn't have gone that fast. And I wish the officers would have just really did a better job in the sense of, okay, well, he's going too fast, like Officer T said. And even Officer Yu, when I was getting an ambulance, he goes, yeah, he was going too fast. I concur, or something like that. He said like that. I can't remember exactly what he said. I've already seen the video today. I couldn't get it for some reason. I couldn't get the videos. I have my phone. And so I'm like, wow. So I was going to come. I said, well, because of the video. And I said, well, I'm going to come down here because it's still wrong, I think, of them not writing the police report correctly. And like I said, I do give the respect to the officers. He was being professional. It's just when I didn't see Officer T there, because I was in shock. I got smacked by that motorcycle. If you guys see the video, you guys will trip out. He did it to spun the van around, a motorcycle. Spun a van around. That's showing how fast he was going. And officers could explain that on every police report saying, hey, he spun the van around. He was obviously going way past 30 miles per hour, way past excessive speed. He's lucky he didn't kill himself. He could have killed himself by going too darn fast. And I hope he learned this from that. But now I learned a big lesson. I'm really scared of motorcycles now when I'm driving. And you guys see it out there in the streets, how bad they are. It's ridiculous. There got to be more better situation for the motorcycles. I don't know what you guys can do about it. But I'm hoping that the officers will rewrite this police report correctly and did a better investigation. Does it take a person that died to get the investigators out there to do a proper investigation? That don't make no sense to me. It's a police accident. It's an accident. Injuries are caused. They should have got out there, looked at the video, say, okay, this is how fast he got. He went too fast. They should have counted the seconds down like I did. When he left the lights, I had my phone. I timed it. When he left the lights to the impact, it was 9-point-some seconds that he hit the van. While other vehicles were still barely passing Pennsylvania Street. He just took off so fast. So I feel it's his fault. I feel the police officer didn't do a correct job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beal. Thank you. Perfect. With that being said, That now moves us on to the deliberation portion of our appeal. So make a motion that the board convenes in closed session as authorized by the Open Meetings Act for the limited purpose of discussing the matters presented in CPC 247-25. May I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Varela, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Affirm.
Vice Chair Budenaro,
Affirmed.
Member Bolianis,
Affirmed.
Member Duncan,
Affirm.
Member Reichelt.
Affirm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Varela. With that being said, we're going to go into closed deliberation and we will come out shortly. I make a motion that we come out of deliberation. May I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you,
Member Bolianis?
Member Williams. Why doesn't call you chair?
Yeah.
Doesn't call you chair.
Don't do that to me.
Is there feedback?
Huh?
Never mind.
Okay. So I make a motion, yeah, we're good. I make a motion to come out of deliberation. Member Bolianis gave a second for that one. Ms. Barela, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Approved.
Vice Chair Budinara,
Approved.
Member Bolianis,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Reichelt.
Approved.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Barela. With that being said, Member Bolianis will read our findings.
Mr. Virgil, do you want to come up to the podium for us here while we just read this out here? So, Mr. Virgil, I do want to take the time to just thank you for coming out. We do greatly appreciate it. But I did want to take the time to clarify the role of the Civilian Police Oversight Advisory Board. The board does not have the authority over the content of the police report, and under the ordinance, we are not authorized to direct the Albuquerque Police Department to revise or to rewrite an official report. So we understand that that's not what you are looking for as an outcome, and we recognize that this is a very important matter to you. But what we can do is thoroughly review each of these cases to identify insights and areas for consideration, and use those and formally share those insights with APD as recommendations to where we can actually further discuss around policies and procedures for improvement with APD. So with that being said, after our review, we do concur and uphold the findings of the CPOA Executive Director. You will also receive a confirmation of the board's findings via mail in a written form. So with that, I do make a motion that we affirm and uphold the findings of the CPOA for CPC 247-25. May I get a second?
I second.
Ms. Barela, can I get a roll call vote?
Chair Calderon,
Affirm.
Vice Chair Budinara,
Affirm.
Member Bolianis,
Affirm.
Member Duncan,
Affirm.
Member Reichelt.
Affirm.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Barela. With that being said, so Mr. Hill, you'll receive a letter with the findings at the end by email or by mail, however we've been communicating with you. But we appreciate you bringing these matters to us, okay?
Oh, yeah, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Have a great
Thank
evening.
you. Perfect. Give us 1 second to transition. Next on the agenda item, we're going to be CPC 128-25 and CPC 129-25. Both those here appeals have been withdrawn as of today, correct, agency? Cool, perfect. So with that being said, we make no decisions on that, and those will be stricken from us discussing those. With that being said, the next order of business will be reports from CPOAB subcommittees, the Policy and Procedure Review Subcommittee by Member Baldonado. Sir?
Thank you, Chair. We had our meeting, was held May 7th at 3 o'clock, and our next meeting is going to be June 4th, 2026 at 3 p.m.
Thank you, Member Baldonado. So with that being said, we're going to go on dinner break right now, and then we'll continue our next order of business after that. So I make a motion that we go on dinner break. May I get a second?
I second that.
Thank you, Member Baldonado. Ms. Barela? May I get a roll call vote?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And what are we, I'm sorry, what are we doing? the roll
Dinner
call?
break.
Oh, dinner break, okay. Chair Calderon,
Approve.
Vice Chair Budinara,
Approved.
Member Bolianis,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Reichelt.
Approved.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, who made that second for the,
Member Baldonado.
thank you so
No, of
much.
course.
All right,
Sorry about that.
your
Thank you.
motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. With that, we'll go on dinner break and we'll be back shortly. Thank you. Welcome back. Make a motion that we come out of dinner break. May I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Member Bolianitz. Ms. Barela, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Approved.
Vice Chair Budenaro,
Approved.
Member Bolianitz,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approved.
Member Reichfeld.
Approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Barela.
You are.
With that being said, we'll move to the next order of business, which will be discussion and possible actions. Wow, my list came out. Public Safety Eco Board member representation. Oh my God, representation by by Chris Sullivan from City Council Services. I just promoted you to the board. Congratulations. You're a backup.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chair, Board. Chris Sullivan, Albuquerque City Council. Our ordinance states that we have like 60 days to fill a vacancy whenever there's a board vacancy, and we probably exceeded that in this past turnover, and I'm glad that we have a full board. In order to not have that time happen like that again, and we all know sitting here at this desk and on the board that it does take a while to get board members fully vetted through our process. I mean, part of it's our fault, part of it's not so much our fault. It's just the timing and the legislation and meeting with the counselors and meeting with the interview committee. Just this takes more than 60 days. So in order to try to speed up the process, we want to create a bench of qualified applicants who have at least gone through interviews with the selection committee and maybe gone through interviews with the counselors. That way, should there be a vacancy and the 60-day clock starts, we can make sure we step that person in. I mean, one thing that we're really, really good at, and I know Member Bolianitz and Member Calderon can, and I think we did reappoint Member Budenaro as well, but once your vacancies are, once your terms are up, we get you back on right away. But it's just, if a board member terms off, it does take us a while to get through this process. With that being said, the Nob Hill Public Safety Echo has an opportunity for me to recruit for board members, and I wanted to go ahead and go on there and make a discussion about what it's like to be on the board and what the qualifications are and what the processes are. And I believe that it would be better that have folks with lived experience, because I've never been on the board, but I've recruited for the board and I've helped select for the board, that, you know, maybe a board member could join me with that. I've also extended to the agency that, yes, you can join this discussion and dialogue with us to help recruit potential board members. And that's my pitch. The Public Safety Echo is May 20th at 12:45. It's at the University Substation, which is, I walk past it all the time. It's near the pit. It's basically South Campus area. And Daryl DeLoach is the moderator, and community comes in and asks questions. There's no aha questions, but there's also officers there who also ask questions and dialogue with the community as well. So I wanted to bring that up because I know part of your policies and procedures require that, you take a vote amongst yourself to decide if you want to participate in an activity or not. And I would think this is an opportunity for one of the board, or maybe we can't have more than 3 because that would be a quorum, but just to join.
Perfect, thank you. So with that being said, so that's on May 20th, you said, correct? Which
Yeah,
is next
that's-
Wednesday. Do you know what time is that? Noon?
12:45, and the thing starts at 1, so it's 1 to 2, but, they want us in studio at 12:45.
Perfect. So with that being said, do any board members want to volunteer automatically? Are you able to? 'Cause-
I volunteer as tribute.
Thank you.
No, here's the real question. Do you actually want me there?
Chair Calderon, member Bouillonets, yes.
Yes. Does anybody else volunteer or has availability to be there? Okay, so you're busy, your work. Do you feel May 20th, 12:45 to 2? Can you be present at the community center in the southeast, South Campus area? We'll get more
No,
details.
sorry, the substation.
Substation, okay, substation. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to go attend that? Okay. Okay. Cool. So we have 2 as of now. 3 would be a quorum, right?
No.
Yeah, 2. Okay. That's what I was like 2 is the most.
Yep.
I mean, I guess we could post it 2. More publicity, but that's okay. Cool. So we will have member Bouillonets and member Rossfield be the ones to go. If you could get them the proper information for it, or give it to the board or to the agency, and then they'll get it to them.
Yes, I will share it with the agency director and deputy director, and they'll share it with the board members who chose to do this.
That works. Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the publicity, right? Because it is, yeah, to the point, it is hard to recruit people, especially like mine and member Bouillonets for sure expire within 2-ish, 3 years now, right? And we can't renew because we're already at a second term, so yeah. And I don't want you guys to struggle more than you guys have to, so that makes sense. So appreciate it. Thank you. Executive Director McDermott, you good with that?
Yes, that's fine.
I know,
We'll get you the information. A representative of the agency will be there. It's possible that Kelly Mensa from CPCs will also be there, just to talk about the programs and stuff, so.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Thank you both. Cool. With that being said, we'll move on to the next item on there, which would be the board chair representation at the Global Ties ABQ. Executive Director McDermott.
Thank you. Yes, I did give, the board during my report kind of a preview of what this was. The members that will be in attendance from this, there's about 14 of them, and they come from countries like Peru and Mexico and Panama, and let me see who else we got here. El Salvador and Honduras and Dominican Republic, and these are all high-ranking individuals in the policing and law enforcement field, such as inspectors, legal advisors, police commissioners, chief commissioners, directors of agencies, head traffic police personnel for the U.S. Embassy. So all very, accomplished individuals, and they're with this organization in Albuquerque, coming to Albuquerque to learn about policing, to learn about oversight, and how it, might be translated for, their areas, or what things they may want to institute in their areas. And obviously, likewise, we could potentially learn from them as well. So it is an exchange of information, ideas, and there is the request that, the Deputy Director and I will be there. Again, Mr. Kelly Mensa from the CPCs will be there, but we'd also like to have the board chair there to be able to kind of give the whole package of what oversight is in Albuquerque. So
And the date for that?
that is May 21st at 2 o'clock. So.
Is there any objection to me attending this? Objections? We're good? Good?
You can have all that fun you want.
You'll be on the 20th, that's fine. Cool. So thank you for the briefing on that, on both times. And so, yep, I will be there, 21st, 2 p.m. at the office. Cool. Awesome. So now we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the CPOA draft semi-annual report from July 2025 to December of 2025. Mr. Reamer, it is yours.
Hello, yes, good evening. I hope you guys can see at least one screen. I know the one in front of you might not be working, but I've got some pictures to go along with this, so you don't have to stare at me the whole time. But I'm just going to go and provide a very high-level overview. I just kind of scooped some of the graphs and the numbers out of the semi-annual report, and I'll provide about a dozen slides to give you guys some context on that. Starting with the CPOA internal changes and complaint volume. It's very small for you guys, I'm sorry, but I'll break it down. So regarding some big internal changes, the CPOA implemented its new Civilian Complaint Request, CCR process at the start of 2025, and the mediation program began again in May of 2025. A little bit more on those in a second. Starting with the refined intake process, the CCR process, which has resulted in a lower rate of administratively closed and referred IAPS cases, and a higher rate of sustained findings. Now, I should clarify and say saying it's led to more sustained findings is probably a slight oversimplification and certainly an assumption, although I think we have safe reasons to believe so. But there are many potential reasons why sustained findings might go up, such as just receiving more complaints with valid allegations. But the fact that cases receive a thorough preliminary review has certainly helped with the prioritization of investigations, which likely has led to the increase in sustained findings we've seen. I will have more data on that in just a couple slides. Additionally, I really want to note that the CPOA during this period, July through December of 2025, hired a data analyst. He's here tonight, Cameron Johnson, and I will take this chance to publicly brag about my coworker. Cameron has been awesome. He learns quickly, he works hard, he's an exceptional person to work with, and his ability to learn quickly can't be talked about enough because he had to learn from me after all. So give him some sympathy and celebration for that. Overall, numbers-wise, about 33% of all intake was assigned to a CPOA investigator at one point. APD employees also received 19 commendations, commending them for behavior or conduct during this period, and that's a pretty typical number, although we've had periods with higher. And I will have more information regarding mediation, as you see at the very bottom, complaints referred to mediation in a later slide. So broadly, talking about the investigation details, with 90 completed complaints this period, and the CPOA investigated 111 individual APD employees on behalf of 89 total complainants. Of those employees, 56 were found to have violated policy. That is just over 50%, 50.5 to be exact. The sustained rate for cases that were assigned to an investigator was just under 60%, so 58.9. Of those 53 sustained cases, 37 of them, and this I'm talking about the last graph there at the very bottom, 37 of them, so about 70%, had at least one sustained finding that was alleged directly by the complainant, which I think is pretty interesting. There were 16 complaint investigations that led to sustained findings that the complainant did not bring up in their complaint. We know those as sustained violations not based on original complaint. Not included in the slide, but we also saw that the average investigation time for these 90 completed complaints was about 100 days, 104 to be more exact. here's a little bit more information about that CCR process that I was talking about. I'm sorry it's so small for you guys. But I just wanted to highlight, it's really the stuff on the right that I want to bring your attention to. So if we just take a sample size from the last couple reports, we see in July of December of 2024, so a year before this report, there were 36 cases that were assigned to CPOA investigators or referred to IPS that didn't reach a substantive finding by the CPOA because they had to be administratively closed or referred to be IPS. Just in the last period, ever since we started this new intake process, it went down to 15, and in this one, it was 11. So you can take the whole year of 2025 and you still won't get up to the same number of admin closed and referred to IPSs that we had in just 6 months of 2024. So to say that process has been effective for us, I think is an understatement, and hopefully it can only be improved further. Now on the sustained complaints, they have gone up. There's more information on that in a second because I don't want, it's easy to think that, oh, we're just, the department may be violating policies more. That necessarily isn't the argument I would make, which I'll expand on in just a second. In the findings breakdown. So the CPOA and the APD sustained 80 out of 227 alleged policy violations during this period. APD disagreed with the sustained findings of the CPOA for 8 alleged policy violations and 6 CPCs. So 80 out of the 227, that's about 35% sustained rate. So within the individual findings within each case, about 35% of those had a sustained finding. Last period, 268 allegations, 107 were sustained. So that's about 40%. So it was actually higher last period. The period before, July through December of 2024, there was 241 allegations and 70 sustained findings. So that's about 30%. So this period's right in the middle of those two. So not a higher rate of sustained findings, even though there is a higher rate of sustained cases, at least for this year. In the last period, just as a point of comparison, APD disagreed with 12 findings in 7 CPCs compared to the 8 and 6 that we saw in this period. The table presented here, if you guys can see it, includes the top 5 investigated and sustained policy chapters by the CPOA, and as mentioned, APD did not agree with them all. On the next slide, we will see what APD found and the discipline it issued. The top 5 most investigated and sustained policy chapters by the CPOA remain the same as they almost always are. Ever since I've started producing these reports, those were the top policy chapters, although in slightly different order this period, except for 1.1, Personnel Code of Conduct is always the most investigated and sustained policy chapter. Really is a big umbrella policy that covers quite a lot. It's almost always brought up by complainants. So that one's frequently, as you can see, 125 as it far drop off after that as the complaints get more specific and individualized. Sometimes 2.8, the on-body recording device policy, is the second most cited, but reports 216 is usually top 3, and it was in second place this period. 260 preliminary investigations and 271 search and procedure without a warrant were flipped last period. So 271 was slightly higher than 260, but remain some of the most investigated and sustained policy chapters always in that top 5. Moving on to, so this is the final findings and the discipline breakdown as decided by APD. As noted in that last slide, APD upheld 80 sustained or sustained violation not based on original complaint CPOA findings and 53 complaint investigations. 56 APD employees were found to have violated APD policy, with 17 employees having multiple violations. So at least 2. ESIs, so the Enhanced Supervisory Interventions, you guys have heard about those a little bit. There's more information on them in the report, or I'm happy to explain them a little bit further if needed. And written reprimands were the most common discipline actions, although as you can see there were 11 suspensions during this period as decided by APD. This is not included on the slide, but of the 80 total sustained findings, in 47 of them, that's about 58.8%, APD decided to issue discipline that diverged from the CPOA recommended discipline, but remained within the applicable policy range that is allowed by the policy. A discipline divergence can occur for a few reasons, such as IAPS using its discretion to lower the discipline to a minimum of the respective discipline range as prescribed, or due to recategorization of a violation. So sometimes they can be categorized as misconduct, performance, and this has an impact on the progressive discipline at all. And of course, any change to one of these things may have an impact on the total progressive discipline, which can make discipline more severe and bring it down. So discipline can diverge for a lot of reasons, and I'd be happy to explain it in more detail if anyone was curious. But till then, I keep moving. So broadly, demographic breakdown of APD employees that were investigated. So no substantial change here from last periods. Numbers are in line with the proportions we consistently see. White and Hispanic are the most common for APD employees, with white non-Hispanic being the second most common. This is unsurprising given the demographics of our community. So nothing too big to report on there, or nothing standing out. If we look at employee ranks, also not too much extra to say here, as it's in line with past data. The only thing to note is the increase in investigations that include PSAs. So two groups, if you can see it, there's police service aid and there's also police service aid training. So in the last period, the CPOA investigated 11 PSAs. This period it was 15, so that is slightly going up. However, in the last period, 10 of the 11 PSAs that we investigated were sustained, which was a high percentage for one role within the department, and it was worth noting. But in this period, PSAs were less of an outlier when it came to the percentage of cases that resulted in a sustained finding, although some of those did include non-concurrences by the APD. So CPOA sustained a PSA, and then APD ended up disagreeing. Moving on to the division. So this is consistently one of the most variable things about the data set when we produce this report. While it can generally be stated that we are most likely to receive complaints from the south side of I-40, the specific area command with the most complaints and sustained findings appears to vary by period. In this period, the southeast and southwest were at the top. Last period, the northeast had the most complaints with 22, and Valley had the most sustained complaints, 7. So some variability, and if you go to the report, you'll find a map we put together there as well. Employee range. So lastly, for information regarding investigated APD employees, as usual, younger employees are more likely to be investigated and sustained by the CPOA. This is typical with every period, and it makes sense based off the safe assumptions that there are more young people, at least under 35, in roles that routinely interact with citizens, and these employees are expected to be less experienced. So no big standout there, and it is typical with past data. Now, if you go to complainant breakdown, this must be so small for you guys, you can barely see it, but at least you may be able to see that there's a lot of diversity in the reporting here, as it's not as standardized, and the complainants can basically answer however they like. But for the reporting period, the CPOA completed 90 CPC investigations on behalf of 89 complainants. Additionally, 4 complaints had 2 named complainants, and 5 named complainants filed multiple complaints. Again, no big surprises with the demographics here, and the numbers are in line with the general Albuquerque community. The graph shows a lot of diversity of results. The complaint form has much more expanded reporting options than was tracked for APD employees. So if you go back and look at APD employees, you'd see that every Hispanic APD employee is also registered as white. It's not as straightforward here when we talk about complainants. Oh, actually, I didn't include a slide for these, but it's worth noting from that our reporting for people who reported they were unhoused or had a self-reported mental health issue remained low during this period. So in this period, 5 complainants self-reported mental health issues, and 3 reported they were unhoused at the time of the incident. In the past period, there were 3 that reported mental health issues and 9 that self-reported being unhoused at the time of the incident. The response rates are often largely lean no on those answers, and then the second biggest option is usually prefer not to answer or unreported. So we don't usually get a lot of responses to those, and they're typically very low. So not abnormal, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. And then complaint situations. So the numbers below, or that you can see on the TVs, are the most common situations and allegations reported in complaints as described by the complainant and tracked by CPOA analysts. This information is not included in the formal report because it has 2 levels of subjectivity. The complaint's summarized story and the analyst's categorization of it. But I still think it is useful for the board to be made aware of some additional context that can be gleaned from this kind of categorization. It must be noted that these categories are broad and don't always paint a great picture of the totality of what was happening during an incident that resulted in the complaint. For instance, responding to an emergency disturbance, which is commonly near the top of the situation categories, can include anything from officers responding to a strange but ultimately harmless noise, all the way to the situations that can only reasonably be described as an abject emergency. But in the last reporting period, vehicle accidents were the most common at 18. But this period, responding to emergency disturbance and investigation, which stands for situations where a complainant wanted an officer to look into something, basically to do an investigation, usually of an alleged crime, were above vehicle accidents. Since we started keeping this information, the top three have remained consistent: responding to emergencies, requests for investigation, and vehicle accidents. Traffic stops also commonly are in the top 5, and categories we often see more of that aren't represented as much in this period are domestic, family, and custody disputes and neighbor disputes. So I like to think that means that our community is arguing with each other less, but it's probably more so circumstantial. Recurring primary allegations. Now these are very specific, but they're things that stood out to the CPOA analysts as the primary accusation of certain complaints. What we mean by primary allegation is that it was the central or only accusation made in the complaint. Accusations that an officer was rude or unprofessional are, of course, very common in our line of work, but in 22 of them, it appeared to be the primary only reason that the complainant complained. It's worth noting that there are 6 complaints that explicitly alleged and/or alleged bias and or targeting by the police, which is something we pay particularly close attention to, not only as investigators, but as analysts. This can mean someone thought that they were being targeted for a particular reason, their race, for example, or were for any other reason singled out and unjustly targeted by the police. But it's just as important to note that none of those 6 complaints were sustained under SOP 104 bias-based policing and or profiling. Specifically, all of those allegations were found to be unfounded, those 6. Moving on to use of force. So during this period, APD had 304 total use of force interactions with completed investigations, 61 at level 1, 179 at level 2, and 64 at level 3. 7 interactions, that's about 2.3%, were found to be out of policy. That 2.3% is almost identical to the last period. In the last reporting period, the total use of force interactions dropped from 355 in the first 6 months of 2025 to 304 now. Both the total number and level 3 out of policy interactions both dropped by 1. So there were 8 in the last period, and there were 4 out of policy level 3s, while in the last reporting period, 3 during July through December. Also, the CPOA reviewed 24 use of force cases. The CPOA-B, you guys, not us, reviewed 24 use of force cases, 25 cases total, including 1 in custody death, 13 serious use of force cases, or level 3 use of force cases, 11 officer-involved shootings, and as mentioned, that 1 in custody death incident. And as you all know, or will soon know, and was told by Commander Norris today, the use of force policies were revised and published in mid-April. So future reporting on use of force will look slightly different than this. It's going to move from this 3-tier system to a 2-tier system, and there will be another data point for a low-level control. And I think you guys actually have been exposed to that already in those most recent IFD reports, so that's great. And we'll keep flying all the way to the last slide, which I'll just call other stuff. This other stuff slide includes policy review and recommendations. So the CPOA, the CPOA-B, and CPCs, the Community Policing Councils, made 111 policy recommendations on behalf of 46 policies at 22 PPR meetings and during 23 35-day review processes. APD agreed with 68.5% of policy recommendations, and 65% of them were made at PPRB. It was a good period for policy recommendations from my point of view. The most substantial recommendations, in my opinion, concern on-body recording device policy. 2 big things there. One is that the APD moved the location, the allowable location of OBRD placement from, it used to be required at chest level, now belt lines allowed. The investigators in my office had concerns with that, so I spent some time discussing with APD to find some compromise where they could get this discretion that they wanted for officers who thought they could get better recordings on their belt line by agreeing to optimal language within the OBRD policy, showing some guidance to officers that really, if you have a choice, it's best to be put here, but if it's better to be put somewhere else, that's allowed as well. And then there was also, we filled a very important policy gap within the OBRD policy in regard to vehicle searches with warrants. The policy just had a gap, simply plain and simple, where it wasn't required for officers to record vehicle searches with warrants. This made it hard to enforce when any mistakes were made in that regard. So we were able to fix that, which is great. Another big one was the response to traffic crashes, which I had this honorable board's so much help with, which is, and these recommendations led to a special order by Chief Medina requiring a preference for sworn personnel to investigate city-issued vehicle crashes. We also had help from the risk management division in that because of the liability concerns that were with them. What we were running into is that we were seeing that PSAs were basically becoming the default crash investigators for the department. And while we can all understand how roles and responsibilities need to be divided such that sworn officers can be where they're needed most, considering the liability of the city when you're talking about city-driven vehicles. It was important to us to get sworn personnel and important to risk management. And we were able to write a letter to the chief and get that. So fantastic things to point out. And I will be honest and say that 68.5% acceptance number is inflated by the number of presentation order and recommendations I make, such as typo, grammar, and formatting edits. If anyone's gone to PPRB with me, they certainly know that I'm the guy trying to make those policies look as good as possible. And of course, that's while important, it doesn't always affect officer behavior. Although we do make some substantial ones, as I mentioned earlier. And it's important for me to say, too, from my point of view, that when APD does not agree with our recommendations, or I can even be more specific, with my recommendations, they almost always, unless there's confusion or misunderstanding, always provide understandable and well-explained reasons. And they deserve to be shout out for that. So, and then not quite lastly, but moving on to mediation, the CPOA relaunched its mediation program in May 2025 in accordance with the city's oversight ordinance, which designates mediation as the preferred method of resolving civilian police complaints. The program provides an impartial forum for community members and APD officers to engage in structured dialogue, promoting understanding and improving community policing relations. Eligible cases include complaints involving communication issues, rudeness, or minor administrative concerns, so typically lower level violations. Allegations involving the use of force, bias, or injury are generally excluded. During this period, there were 16 cases referred to formal mediation this period, and none of them had to be reopened for investigation. We will have a greater sample size to judge the results and impact of mediation in the next reporting period, so look forward to that. And then lastly, while not technically a part of this reporting period, I still think it's important to mention that the CASA termination on May 12th of 2025, the joint motion by the U.S. Department of Justice and the City of Albuquerque to terminate the court-approved settlement agreement, CASA, was granted, formally dismissing the lawsuit and ending more than a decade of DOJ oversight of the APD. An important note and an important reminder of our important role in what we do here today and every day. So. Any questions, I'm happy to answer now that I'm able to. But of course, at any point if a question comes up about this report or any past report or any future data, you can always shoot me an email or a phone call. I would love to talk about it. So.
Perfect. Thank you for that significant detailed report. And that's only a small fraction of the actual report, too. That thing was amazingly long and a lot of data, a lot of graphs.
Yeah.
So, do any board members have any questions at the moment?
No, I really like how you guys did it. It's very detailed. You can definitely see the trending over 3 years, which is really great. And so good job, policy analyst Gabe now, and to the data analyst guys doing all that work with Deputy Director Rabasi. It's great. You guys are doing all this work and having the percentages, and you can actually show the data, which is awesome.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, makes me happy.
We'll keep getting better.
Yeah, we are, for sure, especially from our first one. Yeah. Anything else?
Did it take how long did it actually take to compile all this data? I'm just kind of curious, like in the report.
We typically take about a month. So we wait about 3 months for the data to be finalized, so that discipline to be processed and things like that. So we can
the lag time of the data process.
And then we take about a month to really bunker down and get it done.
That's not bad. What did it take the first time? 6 months?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When I was learning how to do it,
it's down significantly.
It was my whole probationary period, basically.
Yeah.
Deputy Director?
No, I just, Chair, members of the board, I just want to thank again to Gabe and Mr. Johnson for all the hard work. I was mostly there for moral support. They did all the work. So
Oh, he helps
thanks.
more than that.
Yeah. So thanks to them, and we just like your approval to be sent it to the council for final approval.
Awesome. Thank you, yes, I appreciate it. Cool. So with that, we have to take a vote, right, to forward it off to city council, or is it just
You don't have to actually make a motion or a
Yeah.
vote. You can just, if the board has no, huh? I guess we did last time though, so if you want to, go ahead.
we'll keep consistency across the board, right? What? I know. So with that being said, I make a motion that we approve the semi-annual report from July 2025 to December 2025, and that we direct the CPOA to submit it to City Council for the review and approval. May I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Member Bolianis. Ms. Barela, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon,
Approve.
Vice Chair Budinaro,
Approve.
Member Bolianis,
Approved.
Member Duncan,
Approve.
Member Reichfeld.
Approved.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Barela.
You're welcome.
Awesome, thank you. So with that being said, the next agenda item would be the Ad hoc Audit Committee. This was tabled from the last meeting, and speaking with Ms. Barrera, she reminded us to put it on here. I'm not 100% sure what to do with it at the moment, because the last time you guys met was last year, if I remember correctly, right?
Right, yeah, the ad hoc audit committee is, we meet obviously ad hoc and review and do the audit, and so we only do every 6 months. And so, yeah, the previous term was myself and Member Budinaro, which we met last December was the last one. So we're coming up on the 6th month for May, June. So we're, to comply with the 6-month audit.
Thank you. Executive Director?
Yes, Chair. So basically, what we would do in this meeting is elect who is going to be, or select who's going to be on that committee, and then that committee would reach out to the agency in order to schedule, hopefully, a meeting sometime in May to select the case or cases to be audited. And then it would meet again in June to sort of finalize the audit and then present the findings to the board in the July meeting. So that's kind of the schedule of events, if you will. Because this is an ad hoc, you do need to allow 10 days notice for the meetings. So if the selection of the 2 members that's going to be on this ad hoc would reach out to the agency fairly soon in order to coordinate a initial brief meeting in May, that would be great.
Thank you. Okay. So I think for this in specific, I would want at least one person from the last one to be on it, so we can ensure continuity, right? Yeah. It might be you because Member Budinaro is already on the policy subcommittee.
I'm on the policy subcommittee too.
Oh, you are? That's so true, huh? Damn. Okay. May volunteer myself, but I need somebody else. Member Duncan? No idea yet. Would have forgot that. That's a whole discussion to figure out dates and stuff. Would you be willing to? Yes. We just try it out?
Yes.
And then we'll go from there and we'll discuss dates and stuff like that as we get information from CPOA, and we'll see if we can make it work. Probably typically after hours of work as well, if possible. So, Ms. Barrera, Executive Director, myself, Member Duncan, will be the 2, okay? And we'll bug the prior members as well to see how it went.
Nope.
Cool. Do you need anything else from us right now at the moment, or is that it for now?
No, you've selected the 2 members, and then you'll just reach out to the agency, and we will coordinate some sort of a schedule as to what's going to work for the 2 of you in terms of the meeting. And like I say, the first meeting is very brief. It's see what cases exist that fit the criteria and select based on the percentage that's listed on the ordinance. We have a pre-existing tool that the previous ad hoc committee has used, so You as a new ad hoc group will review that tool, see if you want to continue using it, or if you're going to, modify it in some way. And that would be the basis of that particular meeting. Being a new member, any other clarification or questions that you have, of course. And then the next meeting, after you review them individually, then you meet as the ad hoc committee, discuss your findings, and then prepare your report essentially for the board meeting.
Okay. Cool. I think you got that in my mental note. I'll look at the minutes. We probably eventually want to write down these processes, right? So we have them standardized for every single time. So if I can push it on you guys, because you guys know it more better than I do, just so we have that consistency and continuity, right? Cool. Awesome. I'll reach out. Perfect. With that being said, we'll move to the next agenda item, which will be APD policy with Mr. Reamer. There are no recommendations, correct? Awesome. Cool. Do you want me to just run through this myself? Cool. So with that being said, there's no recommendations. Oh, excuse us. Jesus. Oh.
Everyone with an iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, Androids too. It's a public safety, a silver alert. So with that being said, there's no recommendations from policies from the policy subcommittee that took place earlier last week. But with that being said, they have no recommendations for SOP 1-56 horse mounted unit, no as well for SOP 1-62 International Affairs Professional Standards Division, SOP 1-65 Metropolitan Court Protection, SOP 2-3 Firearms Ammunition Authorization, SOP 2-15 Small Unarmed Aircraft Systems Operations, SOP 2-38 Daily Staffing and Briefings, SOP 2-43 Roadblocks and Checkpoints, SOP 2-48 Towing Services, SOP 2-51 Safe Driver and Award Program, SOP 2-59 Extreme Risk Firearm Protection Order, SOP 2-69 Informants, SOP 2-92 Crimes Against Children Investigations, SOP 2-104 Civil Disputes, SOP 3-30 Line Inspection Process, SOP 3-44 Review and Completed Administrative Investigative Cases, SOP 3-47 Acceptance of Disciplinary Action and Right to Appeal, SOP 3-51 Department Orders. Again, for those ones, there was no recommendations from the last policy subcommittee from the CPOA and CPOAB. Next on the agenda item will be APD response to policy recommendations. Mr. Reamer?
Yes. So we had a few. I actually would like, if I may, Chair, I'm going to take 1 minute to, since we have a semi-new face and a new face, I'm going to describe the policy process as quickly as I can. So whenever APD publishes a new policy, these are reviewed before publishing and put into action. And then published policies are revised yearly, or actually a new published policy is reviewed again in 6 months. After that, published policies are reviewed yearly or every 2 years. Eventually, if there's no recommendations made to those policies over the course of years, they'll be cemented and they'll basically be taken off. But you can still make recommendations to them off cycle. It's just that they won't be brought up in the course of review. Policies can always be revised by special order at the chief's discretion, so policies can be changed. It doesn't have to wait for review. But the process overall is that it starts at 15-day commentary, where a policy will be posted on Power DMS with a red line version, allowing the entire department and our office to comment on the policy at that period for 15 days. After that, it goes to PPRB, which is a meeting that is held every week, and I've already brought up in the earlier, and that's really where I get a lot of my recommendations in, especially a lot of the presentation stuff. The subcommittee of this board that is represented by a couple members meets monthly before this meeting to prepare for this section of the report. And I just wanted to make it clear, and then after PPRB, the CPOAB gets 35-day review. So you guys are always provided that chance to discuss it in person and then be able to submit formal recommendations through us or on your own volition. I also wanted to always make it clear that we can also make recommendations that are off cycle. We don't have to wait for something to be reviewed. We can always make those recommendations. Now, if we make them off cycle, it probably won't be brought up until it's going to be reviewed. But if we have something pressing, as we did with the crashes involving PSAs, we can write a formal letter to the chief asking for a special order if ever needed. So those are things to keep in back mind when it comes to policy. Now, and the process. Moving on to responses to policy recommendations. So I'm going to go through these two entirely, and then I might do a summarized version of the use of force. So you guys don't have to read me or listen to me read too much. But starting with SOP 111, the Transit Safety Sections, a TSS policy. So board recommendation was sponsored, something I brought forward, then you guys sponsored and pushed forward for me, which I appreciate. It was add the italicized language to 111.6A1A, and it's investigate traffic crashes involving city transit buses or sun vans when there are no injuries. That italicized language would be new. APD did not concur. And they said the proposed language conflicts with SOP 246.4A4. SOP 246 outlines when a PSA or TSO may respond to crashes involving injuries and clearly assigns responsibility for serious injury, or fatal crashes to sworn personnel. Accordingly, SOP 246 would need to be revised before incorporating similar language to SOP 111. Additionally, because SOP 246, response to traffic crashes, already provides guidance for injury-related crashes, adding this language to SOP 111 would not be necessary. For these reasons, the language will not be added to policy. I don't entirely agree with the first part of that, but I definitely agree with the second part of it. And overall, I believe that the proposed language is useful to emphasize the exception for TSO investigation of injury crashes in SOP 111. However, I would concede and agree with the APD policy author that the proposed language was not necessary, as 111C(a)(1)(c) and D are clear that TSS personnel are not the primary responding employee for crashes with injuries unless sworn personnel are unable to respond and they're authorized to investigate those by sworn personnel. In conversation with the policy author, it was agreed that it is in APD's best and the city's best interests to have sworn personnel investigate injury crashes, especially when they involve city vehicles. But the policy must account for situations where sworn personnel may not be able to respond efficiently. And in correspondence with risk management, as I also reached out to them, as I did with the PSA policy way back when, they also agreed that they prefer sworn personnel to investigate serious injury or damage crashes, but they reported no experience or issues regarding TSO investigations in this situation or any other. And then I cited to 246, which kind of elaborates on what the standard really is. Yeah, actually, I think that's no other further notes on that one, unless you guys have any questions. Yep. So lastly, SOP 27, or lastly for, until we get to use of force, damage to or loss of civilian property, and you can already see the recommendation in effect by the name of that policy, because the CPOAB recommendations were rename the SOP to account for the inclusion of procedures regarding the inadvertent loss of civilian property. That is something that the CPOA, with the help of our investigators, were able to get included in policy, which is great. Procedures to follow when an officer realizes they've lost a civilian's property. And the second part of that recommendation was include keys in the explicit list of civilian property, as we've had cases where those have gone missing and it's caused some unnecessary suffering for the complainant. But and APD concurred with both of those. Now, when it comes to use of force, I'd be happy to read this for you guys if you'd like me to, or I could just provide kind of a high-level overview of them. Yeah, keep it high. All right, awesome. So really, for SOPs 252 general and 253 use of force definitions and 257 use of force review and investigation of department personnel, I submitted a recommendation form as a matter of formal record regarding the standalone use of force requirement that department personnel shall only use force when necessary as a core principle for using force. Now, I did this because we had so many conversations, so many emails back and forth, that there really wasn't a formal record of it in one place. So I thought I'd do my best job of getting it in there. It actually wasn't expected or necessary for APD to respond to this one, although it is kind of a required by process. But IFD did respond anyway, and they provided the 5 reasons, very similar to the ones that we've heard before at a special meeting about why they wanted to remove that language. And just from a high level, I'll just read the top stuff. APD's response to that necessary is redundant within an objective reasonableness and minimal force framework. Second is that minimal amount of force necessary explicitly captures this necessity concept. Third is that New Mexico case law does not create a separate necessity element. Fourth, operational and training considerations from a training and accountability perspective, introducing necessary as a separate threshold may create confusion, produce inconsistent interpretations, and not including it maintains constitutional alignment, preserves proportionality and restraint, avoids introducing redundant terminology, and promotes consistent application in training and review. Lastly, the totality of circumstances applies equally to both concepts. So this this was all understandable, and I wouldn't disagree with any specific point that IAFD put forward in their response. I would still maintain that I thought that that necessary threshold as a threshold term and as a standalone term was a very important matter of presentation and optics and thing that I thought was important for officers to see and read. AP did not agree for the aforementioned reasons, and that's, I really appreciate that they took the time to even respond to this one again. I think they've made their point very clear, and I certainly won't, I won't beat a dead horse, or I won't use that expression because I wouldn't beat a live one either, but I appreciate the back and forth on this one, and that, and just to kind of tie it all together, some recommendations that I did put forward on this necessary terminology were in fact partially accepted. Part of it was a definition of objectively reasonable that included some of this language. That was partially accepted, and the word necessary, which I was really fighting for, was put back in policy and at least under guard. Whether that had to do with me or some lawyer that makes a way bigger paycheck, I don't know, and I don't care. I'm glad it's in there, so that's good. SOP 252, use of force general. So we received a recommendation, so moving on to the next one, sorry guys, from the Valley CPC chair and supported its formal suggestion to APD with additional rationale. The CPOAB recommended adding language to the core principle statement of 252.4b that further emphasizes and explains the higher standards that APD holds itself to. So the recommendation was adding a new subsection to 252.4b as 254b1. And I'll read it, and the italicized language is what we'd be recommending, and I'll highlight it when I get to it. The department holds the department personnel to a higher standard than articulated in Graham v. Connor when performing their duties on behalf of the department and the community. Department personnel who use force shall use the minimum amount of force necessary that is objectively reasonable and based on the totality of circumstances confronting them in order to bring about a lawful objective. And this was the recommended language. 1, the higher standard includes that department personnel will treat all individuals with respect and when feasible use de-escalation practices consistent with their training before resorting to using force or to reduce the need to use force or to minimize the level of force necessary in accordance with SOP 255, use of force de-escalation. APD's response was that it did not concur, and we kind of heard already why Commander Norris, in responding during our special meeting, and stated again very well here by APD in their response, which was the department appreciates the input from the CPOAB and the CPC and certainly agrees that officers should be respectful and use de-escalation when feasible, which are existing requirements in SOPs 1.1, 252, and 255. In fact, respect is one of the department's core values, and after much consideration and noting that these concepts are already required elsewhere in policy, we determined that reiterating these requirements by inserting them into the Graham-related standards could create potential confusion. For this reason, while maintaining full support for the fundamental concepts of respect to de-escalation, we will not incorporate the recommendation at this time in the SOP 252.4b. And then he provides the exact policy directives he sees throughout the policy suite that reinforces this. He points to, just to highlight a few of them, de-escalation is required as part of the following policy sections: 252.5a1, 252.5ac, 255.4a, and that one gets a gold star for me. I think that one's so well stated. Sworn personnel shall proactively use de-escalation techniques to gain voluntary compliance of an individual to reduce or eliminate the need to use force. That's a gold star right there. 255.4b3, I3, attempt to slow down situations with increasing risk of harm to others, the individual or other people. When feasible, sworn personnel shall develop a plan to reduce or eliminate the need to use force. 255.4b5, AC, lists the de-escalation techniques and emphasizes communication. The department also explicitly requires 255.4d. Sworn personnel should not engage in objectively unreasonable actions, use of tactics, or make statements that escalate a situation such that a force becomes necessary. And back to the department's language here. Regarding respect, the department understands that treating citizens with respect is an important component of the use of force encounters. However, it is the department's position that this important requirement applies to all citizen encounters, not only force encounters. This is why the respect requirement is incorporated into the department's core values: fairness, integrity, pride, and respect in its personnel code of conduct, SOP 1.1, 115A1, and that is department personnel shall treat the public with respect, courtesy, and professionalism at all times. And our office knows that directive very well. Anytime personnel represent the department or identifies themselves as police officers or department employees, they shall not use profanity directed as an insult or any language that is derogatory, contemptuous, or disrespectful towards any person. Again, thank you for the recommendation, and we hope that this response clarifies the department's commitment to the same concepts identified by the CPOAB and CPC. So that's that one. Any questions or comments there? All right, moving on to SOP 254, and the last two of these were both accepted. This is intermediate weapon systems. So to be consistent with use of force core principles in SOP 252, the board recommended revising its policy to use identical language. So basically writing it out. So to use intermediate weapon systems only when objectively reasonable, and to use the minimum amount of force necessary under the circumstances to gain compliance with lawful objectives. Formerly, they were using kind of a shorthand. They would say, while the core principle was stated in the policy, they would say reasonable and minimal afterwards, which really I didn't have a big issue with, but this is clear, it is better. It would have been enforced formally, but this makes it just explicit, and I think it's a better matter of presentation all around. So concur on that one. And then lastly, SOP 255, use of force de-escalation, to emphasize how 255 de-escalation procedures are related to the use of force generally or the use of intermediate weapon systems as force. These SOPs should be referenced and linked within the de-escalation SOP. The reference to SOP 252 was also included in the Valley CPC recommendation. That was concurred and put into policy, which makes it easier to see and much more convenient on Power DMS and emphasizes how relevant they all are together. So, and that is all for APD responses. I appreciate it.
I think that's one of the longest ones we've had, but a lot of good stuff. A lot of recommendations we made prior. I'm glad they finally got back to us on them, so thank you. Yeah. Appreciate that. Any questions? Perfect. So with that being said, we move on to the next agenda item, which would be other business. I have two items real quick to bring up. So myself, member Bolianis will meet for a working group to revamp the ordinance, to compile the information that we have on it, just talk about it, and then from there in July we will formally activate the ad hoc ordinance subcommittee, revision subcommittee. We'll see what we call it then. Any questions? It's a notice to the board and the agency. You good? Good? Cool. Awesome. With that being said, next one for the board members, ride-alongs for Q2. Please send me your preferred times and commands that you'd like to attend. Email them to me by Friday at close of business. Thank you on that one. And then any other business before the board? Good. I'm just making sure. There's nothing else. Cool. With no other business, we'll move on to the next order of business, which will be the adjournment. The next regular scheduled board meeting will be held on Thursday, June 11th of 2026 here in the chambers at 5 p.m. With that being said, I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting for today. May I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Bolianis. Ms. Barrera, may I get a roll call vote, please?
Chair Calderon?
Approved.
Vice Chair Budinaro?
Approved.
Member Bolianis?
Approved.
Member Duncan?
Approved.
Member Reichfeld?
Approved.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, that motion passed unanimously.
Thank you, Ms. Barrera. And thank you for joining us for tonight's board meeting. We will see you on June 11th.